What's up, everybody? My name is Jacob Deaton, and thanks for coming back for another episode of Southern Wedding Professionals, where we highlight really cool people in the wedding industry that have a really interesting story. And maybe none more interesting than my new friend, Julien Simon, with the Westside Warehouse here in Atlanta, Georgia. Julien, how you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing great. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
So a little backstory as to how we became friends. Just recently, well, I guess since pre-COVID or whatever, um, I had a couple come to me and ask for my business to provide services for their wedding, and which we so graciously said yes. And so I finally got to do a walkthrough at the Westside Warehouse, prior to the wedding, as I like to do with all the new venues that I visit. And I met this wonderful guy, Julien, that took me around and showed me everything. And then I found out that he's running the entire place. And you're what, 19 years old?
I'm 18 years old.
18 years old. See, I'm even overestimating. Uh, and I'm like, how does an 18-year-old run a wedding venue in 2021? Especially one that's as busy as you guys, which I'm sure you'll tell us all about in a minute. But after I heard this guy's story, I was like, this has to be documented on film. People need, and also on the podcast, because we do have the YouTube channel too. But you got to know this guy's story. It's so cool. It's so fascinating, and it resonates with me so much. So, Julien, give us some broad strokes and tell us a little bit of the history about the Westside Warehouse.
All right. So we are located on the west side of Atlanta, so right off of Huff Road, so right in the new west-midtown area. And we've been in this location not as an antique venue for about 20 to 30 years. So my mother has been here for a long time as an antique dealer, actually. So she was well known as Ann Flair Antiques in Atlanta for a while. And as antiques got less and less popular, and people were gravitating towards IKEA and whatnot, we sort of sectioned off, or she sectioned off her antique shop and decided to turn it into an event space. So this was obviously a new area for us, and we spent about a year renovating the space. So everything that we did was done in-house. So from the doors to the bathrooms to literally everything we did ourselves. And then after that, we sort of were looking at the other venues to see how they operated, because this was a new industry for us. And, we had never done this before and never had a wedding or any event before. And so we were just looking how things were done. And we saw, well, if you have to use these specific vendors and caterers, and they had all these restrictions that you're not allowed to do certain things, and then you had to be all loaded in and set up within 3 hours and out within 2 hours, and it just didn't make sense to us how that would even be possible. So we wanted to give people a lot more flexibility in being able to come in and set up whenever they need to, so they have as much time as they need, and being more flexible with the breakdown. And then we also wanted to try to kind of include my mother's past business, so the antiques. There were still some left over, obviously. And so basically we decided that people would be able to pick and choose from the selection of antiques and use that to decorate the space. So since we were going with sort of a modern industrial look for the warehouse, we thought the antiques would complement it and be able to sort of soften the look a little bit. So we let people choose the antiques and use that to decorate the space, so it gives it kind of a unique look. And then we try to sort of follow suit with that uniqueness and let people work with whoever they want to work with, and really do whatever they want with the space. So it's a super versatile space, and our flexibility is kind of our mantra. It's everything that we're about.
I love it, man. Yeah, there's so much to unpack there. Like, one of the things that really impressed me about the venue was the flexibility of the space, but also how you guys integrated your past with your present and future. Um, you know, they have, and Julian's being pretty modest here, but like there's a big room and there are a ton of different antiques, and like they put things on wheels to where they can like really shape the room. Like they put like dividers that are built out of like mirrors and like shutters and stuff that like were just old vintage, really cool stuff, that they've modified and turned into like, like rolling walls. And and they've got, big, vintage tables, that are, God knows how old, that they could just roll out and make a space customized, so that you can really section off the room and make them all have different feels and stuff. And it's such a really cool space and a concept. But like, so you grew up, I mean, in this antique store, right? I mean, like you were you were probably there like every day with your family, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I'd be here every day until I went to school with my mom, and so we had a little playpen set up. So I'd be kind of in a specific area while she'd be able to work on the furniture, stripping furniture, doing a new finish, fixing things like that. And as I got a little bit older, I started playing around with the tools myself, and then ended up tearing down that playpen. And then it graduated from just destroying things to actually building things. And so this warehouse has always been a part of my life as long as I can remember. But it's kind of been interesting to see it change from kind of an old creepy warehouse when I was a kid to now this space that's a nice space where people get married and make memories that are going to stay with them for the rest of their life. And when I really think about it like that, it's like, wow, this place where I grew up that I used to be kind of scared of to be alone is now this place. So yeah, it's been an interesting journey, and I'm glad I've been able to be a part of it.
I mean, as someone who grew up in, I think the reason why your story resonates with me so much is because I grew up in a grocery store. Um, my grandmother and grandfather started a grocery store. My grandmother came from a long line of grocers, um, many generations, and then she decided she wanted to get into business. My grandfather put himself through refrigeration and electric school so he could do basically all the maintenance work that would ever need to be done, and breaking, fixing broken down coolers and stuff. And then all of their kids, my uncles and aunts, became the people that worked in the produce department and the meat department and the bakery, and that was overseeing of the inventory and the alcohol sales, and all that kind of stuff. And then my generation, some more than others, my involvement with the store was kind of light, compared to some of my other cousins who worked there like every single day in the summer. We would all pitch in. So like if we were there, we would work. Like we'd go stock a shelf, or or go steal a cookie from the bakery, stuff like that. And so I just get these images of you, you know, running up and down these halls of all this vintage stuff as a kid. It's like your own like world to play in, you know?
Yeah, definitely. That changed pretty early on. I mean, my mom put me to work sort of. I think I was 8 when I first started helping her out. Like she's a big fan of gardening, so she'd have me help her out in the garden and whatnot at the warehouse just to kind of clean things up a little bit. But that kind of progressed as I got older. So there were definitely some times when I'd be running around and just kind of doing my little kid things like gluing things together and just seeing what I could make. But this was a place of work pretty early on.
Mhm.
And then recently, so I just graduated from high school, and I decided, I was wondering if I had to go to college or not, or if that's what I wanted to do. And I decided to not go to college and to be able to start working full time here. So I feel like people go to college to find new opportunities, and I didn't really need to go anywhere to find my opportunity. So that's it's been really interesting to see sort of my evolution and my perception of this place, and how it's changed as well.
Unbelievable. I mean, yeah, I mean, my family no longer owns a grocery store, but it's still there. And
Oh, okay.
sometimes when I go home, I'll, I won't tell my family that I do this, but like, I mean, not that it's a big deal or anything, but like, I'll stop and I'll walk into the grocery store and I'll walk through the aisles like I did when I was a kid and remember what it was like and all the memories that happened on aisle 7 or, like I have very, specific memories, almost on every aisle. But my family doesn't own that anymore. It's someone else's. For you to to be now dedicated back to the work of that place in its new invention, for for what you have been able to, I mean, for the whole life of you living in that place. I mean, it's just so rare and just so interesting. That uh, that this is how everything has turned out, and that you guys still have the space and that you're running it. What was some of the obviously you're doing well with the event space, but like what was some of the determining factors that you made to like decide to stay and like not take on maybe debt from school or like pursue a different thing? What was some of those factors that sort of played into staying at home essentially?
Yeah. Well, the biggest thing without a doubt for me was I was just I never really liked school. I never enjoyed it that much. I like the social aspect like everybody else, but I was never. I mean, even the classes I didn't like them that much. I'd rather be doing other things. And so I just imagined myself being in school, paying to go to school, like you said, getting in debt to go to school versus just working here, making money, and doing something that I've been doing for 2 years already and that I enjoy doing. Because that's the other thing about weddings, is they're always going to be different, especially with a space like this. The space is used a million different ways, and we've never had one wedding that was even remotely similar to another. And so that's another thing that really sort of attracted me, is I was just like, when it comes to school, I feel like it's kind of the same day, the same thing every day, maybe just different classes, but it's still pretty much the same thing. While with this, I kind of have an opportunity to, do what I want with it, and it's always going to be something new and interesting, new problems to take on. But then, yeah, that's the last thing, is I feel like people go to college to find opportunity, because they don't have they don't see a future in what they're doing right now. But I don't have that problem, and I see a future in this place, and I feel like this is my opportunity. So why would I go anywhere if my opportunity is home?
Yeah, and I love that. And also too, it kind of like it sort of harkens back to an ideology that used to be very common in our American culture, which was mom and dad grew a business and then son and daughter took it over and like took on that business and made it their own and maybe took it a slightly different direction, but it was still the family business. And even though the antique side of your world, that was your mother's to start with, maybe like even though it's evolved into this particular avenue, you know, uh, it's still the family business. You know what I mean? It's still like the family building, at least.
Yeah.
And I mean that's just I think of just there's just not many people that get to really experience that. I mean, get to experience that whole thing of being brought up in a building that you're building a business in, on the business suffers or whatever. It's you guys pivoted and or shifted, and now you're in a situation where it's a brand new business but same building, and just not many people get to experience that and grow up with their family like that.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
that
No.
really speaks to me as a Midwestern kid. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No. I'm very, very fortunate to get to experience that, and again, to have this opportunity that's at home, where I don't need to go anywhere to find my calling. And I can be happy right here, and I'm extremely fortunate for that. And I mean, all the credit for that goes to my mother for having the, because I didn't know what an event space was when I was 15, and we started getting the idea to renovate this place and started working on it. I was just helping out, and so she's the one that's taught me everything. And I mean, we've learned together, but she's definitely, she took the first initiative. So the credit's definitely due to her.
So let's walk it timeline wise, just up till now. So I think you said somewhere around like 2016 and 17 is when you guys decided to make the switch.
Yep.
Walk us through that.
So in 2016, my mother made the decision to close the antique store and to begin the construction and renovation of the event space. So now the space is just a wide open 6,400 square foot event space, but before there were these big walls in the middle and a bunch of small rooms for special pieces like to display, and there was a ton of furniture everywhere. So
I missed my time, man. I could have gotten in there and got some great furniture. Anyway, continue.
But so we had a ton of people come in and grab some great pieces for some low prices. But she knew that we could maybe incorporate, or at least try to incorporate, see if it would work and people would be interested in using like the farm tables and things like that. But there were a lot of decorative pieces and paintings and other large pieces that just had to go. So most of that ended up going into an estate sale, and then that's what ended up to most of the pieces. But then we kept the ones that we think we can, or we thought we could still use, and started renovating the space. And that took about a year and a half. And during that time, we were also looking at the other venues, just seeing how they operated and starting to kind of get a feel for the industry and how it worked. And then in December of 2017, we had our first wedding. This was, I wasn't totally involved in the business at this point. I was still in high school. And so I would work on weekends. I would, help clean up and things like that, but I wasn't working or touring that much. But then in 2018, I started working a little more. So I started learning how to do tours. My mom felt that was where I excelled, so she had me doing that a lot. And then we would still, be doing little things here and there just to try to make the space look a bit better. And we started really getting a feel for the industry and knowing what we were doing. So we started, oh, hey, this person does really good work. We should try to work with them a little more. We can send people their way. And then people started knowing who we were. So I remember in the beginning, a lot of people would call us like a hidden gem just because nobody really knew who we were. But 2018 came and went really fast. And I was, by the end of 2018, I was doing almost all the tours whenever we were able to schedule them on weekends. Otherwise, obviously during the week, my mother would take care of them, but we just kind of started building a reputation for ourselves and knowing the different vendors and just getting a feel for the Atlanta wedding community. But then 2019 is when things really started taking off. So we had about 50 to 60 weddings that year, just a lot going on, and we really made some great vendor relationships with people that we're still working with today, and started to put our little team together. And I also got much more involved, so just doing a lot more of the tours. But it was still kind of only limited towards that until when COVID hit. So with COVID, there was obviously no school, so I was able to be working here and then still do the online classes. Just taking a break to do the classes and then being able to work here more. So I was kind of taking up a larger role in the company. And with COVID, it also, slowed things down considerably. So we had this big plan for 2020 where we were, going to be super busy and right off the bat, in high school, I'd be working all the time during the summer and it was going to be a real busy summer. And then, just busy. That was all we had planned. And it ended up not being busy at all. And we had our last wedding in March 15th. And then after that, we didn't have anything until I think we had one very, very small wedding in August or September. But so it was like, you know, a long period of time where we just didn't have any weddings. We were still touring, but that was a lot slower than we had expected. So we decided to renovate a loading dock in the back of our building into a little cocktail area. So it was an outdoor cocktail area, and we just so we kind of have we just like to continue improving our space. So we're always seeing how we can improve it and just make it better. Whether that's, you know, adding some vines, adding some flowers, repainting something. You can always see us working on some aspect of our space, trying to improve it. So we built that outdoor space, and that was that proved to be a really great decision because people just love the outdoor space, and it kind of has like a Tuscan vibe to it. So it's a little bit different than the event space, but it still really fits in with the modern rustic industrial looks. So it's really nice out there, and we're very happy to have it done. And it was really nice and rewarding to see, you know, everybody really liking it when we had kind of taken a risk with that. But so we stayed busy during the pandemic, and then things started picking up a little bit towards the end of last year. I also started working full-time in April, late April. So like, I think it was two days after I graduated, I started working full-time. And so we just got to it, and I was doing all of the tours, and then we were just starting to pick things up a little bit. But I kind of brought a little more interesting events, should I say, to the warehouse. So we started since COVID. With COVID, there weren't that many weddings, so we tried some parties, and those were interesting, kind of a very different than weddings, but that was fun, and you know, we got to try some new things out, and it's just it's been really interesting. And now going into 2021, we're hopeful for this year, really keeping our fingers crossed. But if we don't end up being busy with weddings, we'll definitely find something to do. But personally, reflecting on working so far, you know, it hasn't been a year yet, but I've been truly loving it, and I really I'm happy with my choice of industry. And I honestly don't think I could have made a better choice, because like I said, I really love how literally every day is different. You're interacting with different people, doing different things. And yeah, so it's been really great.
So man, I the line, like when you said, you're like, yeah, I graduated high school and 2 days later I started my job that I plan on doing for a very long time. I mean, that just like, that just gets me. It just gets me because I get it, and you know, I'm passionate about what I do, and I've always known what I've wanted to do, even though I've taken a couple little detours along the way. So that's just cool, and you know, we have a lot in common as far as like not much college or zero college. So pretty cool, dude. I gotta ask you. So your team, you mentioned that you have like a small team. Tell us about your team, and who all is involved in it, and what their roles are.
So at base, you have me and my mother, right? When we're sort of the big team because we're here all the time. And then we have our event team. So this has changed a little bit, but basically in the beginning, when I wasn't working here full time, my mother obviously couldn't do everything herself, working like a 16-hour day. So we worked with it's a gentleman called Bill Weber. He works it's a Bowman and Clark. They do event planning and florists. They're a really sweet couple, and we've absolutely loved getting to know them. And basically Bill used to help us out, and so they were part of our team. Not so much anymore. It definitely slowed down with the pandemic, and then since I started working full time, but they were a part of it at the beginning, and they gave us some really great advice that we've that was very helpful. Yeah, especially when we were just getting things started. But so they're really sweet, and we've loved working with them. And then we have a security guard that we work with. And so he gives us advice on how to make our venue safer, which is obviously a top priority. And he is just always with us at every single event, and we absolutely love working with him as well. Um, and I can't forget the person who helped us design and build the space. So we have I can call him a contractor, but he's a close family friend, and so he helped us build the space as well. Helps us with electrical work whenever things like that come up. So it's not just me and my mom, but yeah, we've had some awesome help along the way.
So as you forecast into the future here, with like 2021, and you're looking at your books, so to speak, I know you from a lot of the, we spoke about how many weddings you were doing. You were saying that, in the peak year pre-COVID, you were, at over 50 a year. Is there any other type of events that you guys do during the week and stuff, or is it just primarily focused on the weekends?
I mean, it's almost exclusively on weekends. We might have an occasional weekday event. So sometimes, again, still weddings usually. So we'll have like sometimes engagement parties on like Thursdays or things like that. But other than that, it's almost all weekends. We have had some events, so not weddings, but like conferences, different meetings, different groups putting on fundraisers, things like that. But we definitely are centered around weddings. Like that's 95% of what we do. It's kind of interesting seeing the difference between a wedding and a sort of normal event. Being that the weddings all always have a ton more emotion, and everybody wants everything to be perfect, and so I feel like there's good things about each of them, but
Yes.
but I am glad that we do mostly weddings here.
Yeah, I love the wedding industry because there is so much passion in it, from the top down, from the bride and groom and the parents, to the wedding planner that wants everything to be absolutely perfect, and that, like, that's like her brand and her job, all the way down to, all the other vendors, and then the overall spirit of the people that are there to celebrate two people, and they're just there to have a good time, you know so in my world, I love being around people that just want to have a good time.
Yeah.
It's like it always makes for a good evening if everybody's in the spirit of having a good time. It's like we can all just kind of forget about the world for 6 hours here, and just focus in on a couple, catch up with some friends, and have a good time. That's the reason why I've grown fond of of the wedding world, even more so than the other things like corporate events and destination management events and stuff like that. Like, I mean, those are cool. I mean, there's always like a different vibe there, though. Like, they're there to
Exactly.
work,
Yeah.
but then it's like they have to flip the switch, and now they're there to party. Whereas like everybody walks into a wedding with the idea that this is going to be a party and this is going to be fun. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's different too, because there's like families a part of it, and it's really going to be a special moment that people are going to remember for the rest of their lives. That's what I still can never get over, is just that this warehouse people are going to remember as a special part of one of the most important days of their lives, and I'm just lucky to be a part of that.
So as you like forecast into the future, you're big man, 18 years old, running the joint, with mom, like, like, do you is there anything that comes to mind for like the future that like you would like to see you guys expand into an area that maybe you're not doing right now, or maybe more of something that you're not doing as much as you'd like of? Or is it like, we just really love weddings and that's going to always be our top priority? I mean, what do you see about the future? And obviously, we're not holding you to this. This is just talking, you know?
Yeah, no. So I remember in the beginning when we were first setting this place up, the idea was like, because we had looked at like Novare events, who have a lot of venues in the Atlanta area, and we were like, oh, maybe we could buy another property and set up another venue or just do that sometime. But honestly, the thing that kind of sets us apart from a lot of other venues is that it's just us working here, and since we own it and we're the only employees, it kind of we have a different level of investment than like other venues do, where we don't mind staying an extra hour because we're not getting paid like an hourly rate, if that. So it's just a little bit sort of a different level of commitment that we have into the venue versus that an employee would have, and I'm not sure if we're able to replicate that somewhere else. And if we are, it would definitely be difficult and take some time. So I think that before we start branching out or anything like that, really want to, because this place isn't perfect, it's there's definitely still a lot of room for improvement, and we're not denying that, and we're looking forward to making it as close to perfect as it can be. And so yeah, we still have work to do, so that's not going to happen anytime soon, but I think that in the near future, we'd be looking at, because we're not a full service venue. So we just provide venue, we provide our furniture, and we provide ourselves as help. But basically in the future, we might be looking forward to still leaving that as like an option, but then also offering, full service packages with the vendors that we've come to know and absolutely love working with. So there's definitely still room to grow and try new things. And I mean, we've just scratched the surface of what we can do with this place and, and the Atlanta industry as a whole. So there's a lot more room to grow.
Yeah, well, there's always improvements, man. I mean, you're talking about a building that's been there for how long? I mean,
42.
yeah, since 1942. So, yeah, I mean, there's always going to be something to fix. And that's the charm, that's as someone who grew up in a home, in rural Indiana, that was like built in 1860 something, I can attest that every day and every Saturday was spent fixing something on that house, and that's just the way it is, But um, yeah, I think there is something special to that. You always, as someone who employs people, you always want to find someone that that cares about your business. That like the biggest thing that you look for in anything is like how much they care. And the truth is that no employee ever in the entire world of the history of ever will ever love your business as much as you love your business. And it's okay. I mean, that's why you're paying them to be there. I mean, you hope that that's like an added bonus. And that's always like the cream, the icing on the cake, so to speak.
Yeah.
Right. But like the fact that you guys are so small and that you both have vested interest in this particular venue, and it's and it's overseeing its upkeep, its development into new things, and overall customer satisfaction. Like they know that when, they're coming to the Westside Warehouse, that they're going to see Julien, and his mom, like there is something that's, when you expand, uh, there's a chance that you lose that intimacy, and sometimes that's okay. Sometimes it's needed, sometimes it's warranted, but sometimes it's okay to not, and be that venue that where they know that they're going to get Julien every Saturday night, at some point, so there's comfort in that, and there's a lot of trust in that, especially with like returning vendors, and clients that you meet.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that's very much underrated. You see so many people that's like, oh well, we got this one thing happening, let's go build it and go grow the next thing, and then it'll be amazing, and that's okay to have that entrepreneurial spirit, but it comes with cost, and I'm sure that a lot of the brides and grooms that come and they book you guys are instantly just fascinated with how beautiful the space is and the amenities, um, but really also the fact that you guys are, independent, You're not part of a big conglomerate, and you guys are in fact the team, you know.
Yeah, no, that's definitely part of it. I think that the flexibility doesn't hurt either. People like options. They like being able to do what they want. So that's really what we tried to give people. But you're right. I mean, there's a different feel when you walk in and you're seeing the same person that you've always interacted with. Than if you're always talking to a different person every time you get to the venue. I think that's kind of why my mom, when I started working here full time, she was like, all right, well, now you're going to be doing all the tours and answering all the emails because you're going to be the face of the business. So there's one point of contact, even though there's multiple people working behind the scenes to make everything work.
Do you ever? I mean, dude, I keep going back to the fact that you're 18 years old. But do you ever feel like, oh my God, this is like so much? Like this is, can I do this? Or is it just because you've grown up in this very comfortable space of being in this building your whole entire life that it just seems, it just kind of, is it like one of those things? It's like ignorance is kind of bliss. You just go about it. You're like, nah, this is just what I do. I mean, do you ever feel that? I mean, you're 18 years old running an extremely popular wedding venue in Atlanta, you know?
I'll be honest, not really, because it's kind of what I chose,
Right.
and I mean, I fully, know what I was giving up by not going to college, but it just wasn't much that really interested me. I mean, I was ready to work, and like, so in the past, I would work like the full summer between school years. So I would just be working. So the past 2 years, I would do that before I started working full time. And basically, during 2 weeks in that time, my mom would go to France to see her parents. So it's not like it was my first time managing the space. And I also had my mother helping me, whereas sometimes during the summer, for that 2 week period, I'd be managing it alone as a 16, 17-year-old. So I've been used to it, and I feel like I kind of work good under pressure, but it's not like this is a pressure at this point. It's just I know what I'm doing, so it's not like I'm second guessing myself, and I'm not really too worried about it or anything.
I remember being uh finally turning around, like it was like late 19, early 20. I got my certification when I was in the military, and they gave me like basically like the shift supervisor keys to the airfield that I was to manage, and it's an $83 billion airfield. And so I was in charge of my department with the keys. And I just remember being like, oh my God, like what happens? What if something goes wrong? But again, if you've grown up in the environment and you know the room like the back of your hands, you know where everything is, and you got a few weddings and stuff under your belt, as a kid, watching this place grow. I mean, if mom says you're ready and she's ready to go to France,
Right.
you're ready, you know? Mom knows best, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And she needs her vacation too.
That's great. Do you go to France very often? Do you get back to, I mean, obviously not during the whole COVID thing, but like
Yeah.
previous?
We would try to go once a year. So usually it would be like she'd go to for 2 weeks and then I'd go for 2 weeks. Um, Obviously it hasn't happened recently, but hopefully we'll be able to go back once this is all over. Fingers crossed.
Do you speak French well, or are you just kind of like, yeah?
Yeah, no, it was actually my first language, so I'm fluent. Yeah.
I love that. My next door neighbors are from Uruguay, and so they've been teaching their kids, as they've grown up, Spanish and English,
Mhm.
and I just think that's just so cool, to grow up in a bilingual household. That's
Yeah.
something that's something you don't get in Southern Indiana.
Yeah, definitely. I went to Atlanta International School over in
Oh
Buckner
yeah.
as well. Yeah, so that was that definitely helped with learning French. And yeah.
Do you aside from family, do you get to exercise that very often? Like as far as like obviously probably every now and then with a client or something, but that's probably rare. I mean, do you have like a lot of friends that you get to speak French with to keep it up?
I have some friends from school that were French, and so I talk to them every once in a while. But even that, we'll usually speak English. It's mainly with family. Yeah.
Right, right, right. Yeah, I can't. I think the French language is, like the sexiest language ever. Personally, to me, like I just think just the way the way the like vowels and consonants are put together in the sonic, just the overall sonic quality of the language is just so cool to me.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, it's really, really cool. So let's learn some. Now everybody knows you speak French. Let's learn some more things about you specifically as we begin to wind down here. Like, tell us some of your like activities you like to do, like when you're not at the warehouse 16 hours a day, and you have, like another 8 hours or so, and you're like, well, I got to sleep for at least four. Like, what are you gonna do with that other time? All that time?
Well, I love working on cars. Um,
Really?
yeah. So,
Like vintage?
well, a little bit of both. So, I really like BMWs. Uh,
Okay.
so I have an older BMW from 1975. It's a 2002, and then so that was my neighbor's, and I bought that off her. So I'm just trying to get that one looking good and running good. So
To what
need
to what
to.
extent do you work on them? Is it like body work or is it mostly like engine and like
So so I also have a more modern one. It's a 335, so it's a 2009. So I started doing like engine work on that one because I mean it's a BMW, it loves to break down. So it would have costed me too much to keep if I didn't do my own work. So it started out of necessity, but I quickly started enjoying it. And then I decided I needed another project car. So I bought that one from my neighbor, and that's when the body work started. So that one had some rust and things like that to fix. So I got it running, and then I started working on the body. Then I'm gonna get it running great, and then hopefully sell it. So we'll
are you,
see.
so are you doing like all the metal fab too to like replace all the rust spots and stuff?
Yeah.
Dude, you are ridiculous. I don't even know what to say.
Well, I got lucky. I learned doing everything to build the space. So I was taught to weld and learning how to do all that. And I mean, once you do a few things yourself, I feel like you kind of get a hand for it. And I mean, YouTube is really just wonderful. You can do anything nowadays.
It's really crazy, honestly, the amount of knowledge. I kind of think of, did you ever see The Matrix?
Yeah, yeah.
It's like I just remember that scene where they're teaching Neo how to fight, and he's just like, he downloads how to play kung fu, how to do kung fu. You know what I mean? And then he like opens his eyes and he's like, I know how to do kung fu now. I feel like that's like that might be like 5.0, but like 1.0 is YouTube,
Yeah, definitely.
where we just like it's like, what do I want to learn today? I want to learn how to weld. Let me just type this in YouTube real quick, and then in like 15 minutes of a video, you're like, okay, I know the basics of welding now.
I mean, you are 100% correct because yeah, without YouTube, I wouldn't be fixing anything.
I've always wanted to know more about cars, and my family, being from Southern Indiana, most of them can take apart an engine and put it back together with a blindfold on. But I've always wanted to learn that skill. But there's only so many hours in the day. But you seem to find them, so maybe I'm just making excuses.
No, I mean, I'm telling you, one half of being able to fix something on a car is like having the tools, and the other half is believing that you can do it.
Yeah.
Because I mean, it's really it's dumbed down nowadays. So between the YouTube forums, I mean, they have everything from, just filling your oil to swapping the engine.
I'm gonna ask this question selfishly for me. Sorry to my listeners, but about the two cars and the dichotomy of them, like the evolution between the 70s BMW versus now the 2009 that you have. I mean, the innovation between those two engines, I mean, are pretty ridiculous.
Man, see, that's the thing, is everybody's saying that the older cars are going to be easier to work with or easier to work on, and everything's going to be easy and super simplified, and it's true to an extent, but you just have to know how they work. While as with this newer one, which is everything's electric, it's all computers, so you just plug something in, it tells you what's wrong, and then you change it or you fix it. It's there's no real diagnosing, to a certain degree, but with that old one there's no computers, and you just gotta know.
Yeah,
So I feel like the learning curve is a lot higher on that older one, or a lot steeper, sorry, on that older one than on the newer one.
right.
Then again, I started on the new one, so that might be why.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, my cousins can know how. I mean, they can, they can listen to, an engine and know exactly where the of an older vehicle, and know exactly where the problem is, and they're kind of like keen like that. They can just isolate problems like that. So I just find all that super interesting. I'm always nerding out in my free time, watching all these. Like Counts Customs and stuff like that, like all
Oh
these,
yeah.
all these different shows, like where they talk about rebuilding these beautiful vehicles. And my grandfather had a 70s Cadillac that I always said that I was gonna rehab, but it got sold long before I ever got a chance to do it. But yeah, one of these days, maybe.
There's your next reason to pick up a project.
Yeah, no kidding. So is there what are some of the other interests that you get into? Like, is there do you have like a favorite Netflix show, or like is there a favorite band that you like?
I'll be honest. Cars tend to take a lot of my time and money.
They
But
tend to do that.
but I mean, I like spending time with friends like everybody else. I do like Netflix. I love kind of dumb cartoons. So like I love South Park, Rick and Morty, all that. Huge fan of that. But other than that, I mean, there's really not that much to me. I'm either working here, working on my cars, or out driving the cars. Rallies, meets, things like that.
Right. Yeah, I loved uh I have not gotten into Rick and Morty at all, but South Park
Highly
was like,
recommend.
when South Park hit, it's like the world stopped. But before that it was like Ren and Stimpy, and like Beavis and Butthead and all that stuff. I
Oh
was
yeah, yeah, yeah. My dad showed me Beavis and Butthead.
Yeah. That's I mean, my stepfather used to we used to make time and watch Ren and Stimpy together, and then we would watch Beavis and Butthead. My mom thought she was rotting my brain because
Yeah.
I was rotting. I mean, and when you look back at it, I understand why now, but when I was a kid, I thought that was cool.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, the,
anyway, yeah, that's hilarious. That's cool, man. Well, hey, listen, Julian, I just want to say thanks for taking the time out, man. You have such an interesting story. You have like you have a very interesting space, and the story that's attached to it just tugged at my heart. So thank you so much for taking the time to come here and tell us about you.
well, thank you so much for having me, because it was a great experience. Like I said, I've never done anything like this before, so it was a lot of fun. So
Well, you
thank
should, because you're great at it. You're like a natural. You're a natural, just like you're probably a natural at cars, and you're obviously natural at showing your space. So
you.
mom is batting 1,000 at all the things you're good at. So
Well, thank you. I appreciate
well,
that.
make sure you tell mom hi for me,
Will
and
do.
if you're listening, all the information will be posted in the comments below or in the text area of the podcast. Julian, thanks again for being here. Westside Warehouse, check them out online. They are amazing. And I got to have you back on at some point. So please come back.
I'd love to come back anytime.
All right. Well, this has been another episode of Southern Wedding Professionals, everybody. Thanks so much for listening. Like and subscribe, become a part of the community, and know your community better. See ya.